Martha Brabourne had never quite shed the habits she'd cultivated over 30 years as Cardinal Creek's most dependable schoolteacher. She still woke at dawn to glance over her lesson plan for the day, only to catch herself retirement meant no more guiding children's math drills or spelling bees. The house felt larger now, with only the echoes of her routine footsteps wandering through the rooms. She missed the chatter of young voices, the bustle of the school corridor. But life in the quaint town of Cardinal Creek didn't allow for lazy idle. There were always bake sales, volunteer committees, and the occasional neighborly request that kept Martha occupied. Her quiet purpose had become lending a helping hand or a listening ear whenever the townsfolk needed it. It was a simple rhythm she enjoyed, until the odd telegram arrived. The day the first telegram showed up, she'd been on her porch sipping tea. She felt the breeze carry faint scents of wood smoke from a neighbor's chimney as the mail carrier trudged up her walkway. He lifted his cap politely. "Don't get many telegrams these days," he remarked, handing her a sealed envelope emblazoned with the cardinal symbol that gave the town its name. Beneath the logo, bold letters read, "Confidential." "You must have an old-fashioned friend." Martha thanked him and wondered who might send her such a thing. The envelope lacked a return address. Once inside, she opened it carefully, her eyebrows lifted at the single line of text, M. Midnight TTT. That was all. M? Her own name? Or was it a cipher? And what was TTT? Even after poring over the brief note for an hour, she couldn't make sense of it. Under normal circumstances, she might have called her friend Harriet, who'd known the ins and outs of Morse code in her youth. But Harriet had sailed off to Europe that spring. Martha decided to tuck the strange telegram into a desk drawer. Answers would come in due time. She was sure of that. A week later, the second telegram arrived. Almost identical in format, it read, "Do you still have heart enough to see?" This time, no signature, no cryptic chain of letters. Nonetheless, a feeling tingled at the back of Martha's neck. She wasn't frightened, just intrigued. During her years instructing her beloved students, she'd always taught them to approach the unknown with inquisitive bravery. She thought back to the week prior and the M12 Midnight TTT line. Heart enough to see. She'd heard murmurs from a few neighbors that someone was roaming the streets late at night. A shadowy figure in a hooded jacket, a large satchel swinging from their shoulder, had been spotted near the creek's footbridge. Some people believed it to be a nocturnal fisherman. Others winked and whispered about secret trysts. One friend joked it could be an unrecognized ghost. Martha, though, suspected real flesh and blood was behind the sightings. She began keeping her living room curtains parted slightly at night, scanning the street for the rumored prowler. After 3 days of quiet observation, she finally caught a glimpse. Around midnight, a shape in black trousers strode past her picket fence, careful not to step too heavily on the pavement. Her neighbor, Mr. Moretti, lived 3 houses down on the corner. Could it be him? She felt a tiny stir of excitement when she recognized the faint tip of a salt and pepper beard in the glow of a street lamp. She'd only waved to him a few times. He was always polite, but clearly reserved, minding his own business. The next morning she decided to walk up the block under the guise of picking up groceries. Passing Mr. Moretti's home, she noticed how the shutters were drawn tight. A small garden out front sported well-trimmed hedges, so meticulously cut it looked like an obsessive-level job. She paused to straighten her sweater, and by chance, Mr. Moretti stepped outside to gather mail from his box. He regarded her with a cordial nod. "Morning, Miss Brabourne," he said, tipping his head. "Beautiful day." She took in his eyes, which flickered with a hint of apprehension. "Yes, lovely. Getting cooler, though. The leaves have turned quickly this year." He only gave a brief hum in response, as if he felt ill at ease talking about leaves on a crisp autumn day. She noticed a partially crumpled envelope in his hand, but couldn't make out the address. He slipped it into his pocket. As Martha continued on, she vowed to keep a keener watch at night. Mr. Moretti's midnight walks must be connected, she suspected, especially given that cryptic 12 midnight TTT reference from the telegram. The more she thought about it, the more convinced she became that TTT might stand for telegraph transmissions, or something akin to it. She found herself breathing faster with curiosity. If not for the odd messages, she might have let Mr. Moretti have his secrets in peace. But a puzzle had been set in front of her, a puzzle she couldn't ignore. That same night, she kept her windows open slightly so she could hear anything unusual. Around 11:30, she settled herself in a chair by the window, with only a dim lamp burning behind her. She waited. Right at midnight, footsteps sounded. She flicked the lamp off. Through the curtain, she glimpsed Mr. Moretti gliding down the sidewalk. This time, he carried a small black case under his arm. He paused once, as if listening, then continued. Martha swiftly slipped on her coat and shoes, quietly letting herself out the front door. She stole behind him a safe distance back, hugging the shadows. The night air smelled faintly of wood and damp leaves. She followed him around the corner, past the dormant bakery and the shuttered library. Nothing stirred, not even the local stray cats. Mr. Moretti made his way into the older part of town, across the humble footbridge spanning Cardinal Creek's narrow channel, until he reached a small abandoned boathouse. The structure looked half collapsed, with broken windows and rotted planks. Martha felt her heart pound as she edged closer, using the tall grass near the water's edge for cover. Mr. Moretti went inside and shut the stubborn door behind him. For a moment, Martha hesitated. She weighed whether she should attempt to see more or quietly retreat. A scrape from inside pricked her ears. She crept onto the short dock to peer through the window. Candlelight flickered within, illuminating Mr. Moretti hunched over a table. He unlatched the black case and set out a stack of papers. Then he drew out what looked like an old telegraph machine. She nearly gasped out loud. He fiddled with the device's handle, producing faint clicks. Martha recognized telegraph code. Finally, mystery parted its veil. Somebody was sending coded messages, or Mr. Moretti was sending them. Could he be the one dispatching the telegrams she'd received? If so, why? She filtered back home, in a whirlwind of speculation. The next morning she searched her attic for a battered trunk containing mementos, her grandfather's old ham radio, some newspapers from the 1920S, and a telegraph code chart her father had used during his service in the Signal Corps. She recalled seeing it once. Sorting through yellowed books and postcards, she finally found the chart. She spent the afternoon relearning the basics of Morse code. The single line on the first telegram was far too short to decode directly, but her father's chart might come in handy if more messages arrived. 2 days later, the third telegram came. The text was slightly longer, M/GL/O dot dash 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 Morse? Martha's mind spun. She recognized the dot dash dash portion as Morse for the letter W, but the rest was puzzling. She took out a notepad, copying each piece exactly. Could Glail refer to boat is lost or bridge near lake? She wasn't sure. She tried substituting Morse code bits for each segment. While she could figure out individual letters, the pieces didn't form any clear words. It felt like she had half a puzzle, missing the key that would tie it together. She decided it was time for a more direct approach. After dinner, she baked a small batch of cookies, chocolate chip, Mr. Moretti's favorite, also the gossip in the local dessert club suggested, and walked casually to his house. The porch light was on, but the windows were drawn. She climbed the stairs and rapped on the door. Inside, she heard footsteps approach. Then the door swung open, revealing Mr. Moretti in a slightly rumpled button-down shirt and the same guarded expression. "Mrs. Braeburn?" he greeted, flicking his gaze to the tin of cookies in her hands. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" She offered a smile. "I was baking tonight. Thought you might enjoy some fresh cookies." Her heart hammered against her ribs. She had to remain calm. "You've been a neighbor for years, but we've barely spoken. Seems a shame." He paused, perhaps weighing the sincerity of her words. Then a small smile curled his lip. "Thank you, that's very kind." He moved aside to let her in. "Come in from the chill. I'll put on some tea." She stepped into his meticulously tidy living room. Not a speck of dust marred the furniture. On the mantel stood a black and white family photo, a younger Mr. Moretti in uniform beside an elderly man. She glanced away politely, not wanting to pry openly just yet. They settled on 2 chairs near a low table. The kettle whistled soon enough, and Mr. Moretti busied himself. As she accepted a cup, he eyed her curiously. "Besides cookies, is there something on your mind?" Martha took a moment, then gently said, "I couldn't help but notice. You're out and about at odd hours. Perhaps I'm being nosy, but is everything all right? If you ever need help with anything, I hope you know you can ask your neighbors." He shifted, gripping his teacup. "I appreciate your concern. Let's just say I prefer my privacy. I've always been a bit of a night owl." She sipped her tea, choosing her words carefully. "I received a telegram recently. Several, actually. Mysterious. It mentioned midnight and telegraph signals, or so I suspect. I was reminded of some old equipment, and I noticed you own a telegraph set." When his face stiffened, she added, "I saw it by chance." For a tense beat, neither spoke. Then he exhaled heavily. "I'd hoped you wouldn't notice." He set his cup down with a faint clink. "Look, Miss Braeburn, I have no intention of causing trouble in Cardinal Creek, but there's a matter, shall we say, of personal importance to me. One I can't discuss openly." Martha nodded gently. "Your business is your own, but it might lend me peace of mind to understand why I keep getting these coded telegrams. Maybe we can help each other. I still have a teacher's mind and puzzles intrigue me." Mr. Moretti studied her carefully, then half smiled. "You're persistent, that much is obvious, but I do believe you're trustworthy. Let me show you something." He guided her to a small study tucked off the living room. The desk was covered in papers with rows of letters, scribbled notes, Morse code signals. A dusty file box contained more. Martha skimmed the top pages, references to the Federal Intelligence Office, clandestine messages, a name circled in red. Gianni Moretti. Under that was a typed line reading, "Project Redwood." Seeing her confusion, he explained, "Gianni was my grandfather. He worked in code breaking during the early 1940s. I inherited some of his records and equipment." He hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. "There's a rumor that certain government secrets or private telegrams were once stored right here in Cardinal Creek, stashed away by a defector who never passed them on. My grandfather spent years searching for proof. He believed the transmissions were locked in a hidden repository near the creek. After he passed, I took up the search." Martha felt a rush. The puzzle was deeper than she'd anticipated. "But the telegrams I'm getting, are they from you? Or from someone who's discovered your investigation?" Mr. Moretti's brow furrowed. "I haven't sent you anything. I'd guess you're receiving transmissions from an unknown party who's aware of my quest and wants you to be a piece of it? Or perhaps they're trying to lead me astray by using you. I'm not entirely sure." She drew a steadying breath. "I want to help, truly. Is there a lead we can follow?" After a beat of nervous energy, he picked up a single page. "This was the last partial cipher I decoded. It points to an abandoned boathouse at midnight, where you spotted me. I was hoping to pick up fresh transmissions from an old line running under the creek. So far, the signals are faint. We only have fragments. But if we combine the clues you've gotten with these partial ciphers, maybe we can figure out the bigger picture." Martha nodded eagerly. "I'll give you the telegrams I've received. Maybe a fresh pair of eyes on your coded notes can help too. Let's see what we can deduce." Over the next few days, Martha and Mr. Moretti pored over the telegrams at her kitchen table. She'd brew endless cups of coffee and tea as they analyzed every dot, dash, or stray character. Together, they tried placing the Morse code symbols in different orders. They mapped the references to midnight, TT, and heart enough to see. Gradually, they pieced together a new phrase. Look under the timepiece. Timepiece? Could that refer to the old clock tower in the town square, or a pocket watch? Martha recalled that the local library displayed a vintage clock said to have once belonged to an early mayor. On a whim, she and Mr. Moretti decided to visit the library archives. The library, a stately brick building, sat across from the community theatre. In the hushed atmosphere, they approached the archivist's desk, staffed by a bespectacled woman named Della, who used to be one of Martha's students. "Miss Brayburn," Della beamed. "Here to check the archives?" "We are," Martha replied. "We're researching the historical artifacts from early mayors, particularly any antique clocks or timepieces left to the library." Della happily led them down a quiet aisle into a small exhibit room, dimly lit and lined with glass cases. In the corner stood a tall grandfather clock with tarnished brass hands, a plaque reading, "Donated in 1932 by Mayor Walton." The hour hand was stuck at 3, the minute hand at 12. Martha examined the clock face. She leaned closer, noticing faint scratches near the edges. A small crack in the wooden casing drew her attention. Mr. Moretti carefully lifted the glass door covering the clock's interior. Inside were the usual gears, but also a panel that looked slightly loose. With gentle coaxing, he pried it aside to reveal a tiny recess. Martha peered in, heart pounding. A single rolled parchment rested within. She edged it out, the old paper crackling under her fingertip. Della watched from behind with raised eyebrows. "That's never been documented," she whispered. "What is it?" Hands trembling, Martha unrolled it to see lines of neat script in faded black ink. It appeared to be a telegram transcript with references to Project Redwood, encrypted transmissions, and a partial list of code names. At the bottom, the name G. Moretti was scrawled, with a date from 1943. It looked like a clandestine communication about hidden materials in Cardinal Creek. The last line read, "Seek hidden passage beneath the arch, keyword Cardinal." Mr. Moretti was nearly speechless. "This confirms it. My grandfather's name is right there. He knew about these transmissions and left a clue. But an arch, that must be the old arch in the chapel's basement." Della, trying not to gape, informed them that the chapel was no longer used for regular services. It was an old stone building near the original outskirts of town. They thanked Della for her help and promised to fill her in later. That night, Martha and Mr. Moretti visited the chapel just as dusk settled. Weeds choked the front steps, and the heavy oak doors groaned as they pushed inside. The interior smelled of dust and disuse. They descended a winding staircase into the chapel's crypt-like basement, flashlights piercing the darkness. Sure enough, there stood a low stone arch built into one wall, a curious construction that seemed out of place in an otherwise bare expanse. Above the arch was a carved crest, shaped like a cardinal bird in flight. Approaching, Martha murmured, "The transcript said, 'Hidden passage beneath the arch.' Maybe there's a lock or a lever." They ran their hands over the stone. Suddenly Mr. Moretti's fingers found a small depression. He pressed, and with a low rumble, the center block of the arch shifted inward. Then the entire stone panel swung forward like a secret door, revealing a narrow alcove. Inside, they saw a dusty wooden crate sealed with rusted nails. Spinnacles raced through Martha. Mr. Moretti carefully prized the crate open with a multi-tool. Beneath layers of crumbling newspapers lay a metal box locked by a small combination mechanism. Engraved on the box's lid was the same cardinal symbol. He tried to pull it open, but it wouldn't budge. "We need a code," he said, frustration mixing with excitement. Then Martha remembered the last line from the newly discovered transcript. Keyword, Cardinal. That might be the combination. Carefully, she spun the dials to represent the letters. Cardinal. The lock clicked. She exhaled in relief. Lifting the lid, they discovered a stack of papers stamped confidential, an old photograph of men in uniforms, and a single reel of microfilm. Mr. Moretti's eyes brimmed with emotion. "This must be the lost intelligence," he whispered. "Wartime communications and evidence archived by my grandfather. He was determined to keep them safe until the rightful authority could handle them." Martha leaned over to examine a few sheets, noticing references to coded bank accounts, shipments, even a plan to smuggle stolen artifacts. A wave of gratitude surged through her. Despite the secrecy, these revelations were now in safe hands. "What will you do with them?" Mr. Moretti straightened his shoulders. "I should contact the relevant historical or governmental agencies, I suppose. There could be families who deserve closure about certain events from that era. It might complete an important chapter. But first I'll make sure everything is properly secured. No sense unleashing sensitive details without caution." They returned the crate to its hidden nook, deciding it was safer to let the official channels come and retrieve it. But they carried the metal box upstairs, making sure to lock the stone door behind them. As they emerged from the chapel into the night, relief and triumph mingled in Martha's mind. The next day, the final telegram arrived at Martha's mailbox. She opened it with trembling fingers, half expecting another puzzle. Instead, it read, "Thank you. The truth now rests in honest hands." No name, no code, just a note of recognition that the mystery had reached its resolution. She showed Mr. Moretti, and the two of them shared a small smile. Whoever had spurred them on, perhaps a friend or descendant of Gianni Moretti, or simply a kindred spirit in espionage, had deemed their work complete. In the following weeks, life in Cardinal Creek's tranquil lanes returned to normal. The hush over the boat, the secret midnight visits, and the cryptic telegrams all became the stuff of local legend. A small dispatch of government archivists arrived discreetly to handle the crate's contents, and Mr. Moretti oversaw the process with calm dignity. He refused any fanfare, but Martha caught his quiet satisfaction whenever he mentioned his grandfather's name. With a sense of closure came a deeper contentment for Martha as well. Retirement no longer seemed so quiet or purposeless. After all, she had uncovered a hidden chapter of history within her own town, proving that her inquisitive mind and compassionate heart still had room for new adventures. She kept the code chart pinned inside a desk drawer, just in case. As autumn leaves continued to drift from the maple trees, she and Mr. Moretti fell into a newfound friendship, often meeting for tea and indulging in warm, idle chatter. Sometimes they swapped stories about their younger days. Other times they exchanged smaller puzzles or ciphers for fun. No grand conspiracies remained, only small amusements to keep their curious minds alert. One evening, Martha returned from delivering fresh muffins to her neighbor and paused by her mailbox. A single white envelope without a stamp lay inside. Inside was a short note. "The measure of truth is not in secrets kept, but in honesty shared. Thank you for sharing." Below was an elegant drawing of a cardinal. Martha felt a pang of wistful gratitude, imagining it came from the same unseen figure who had introduced her to the puzzle in the first place. She placed it against her heart, letting the crisp breeze carry away the last remnants of mystery. There were still hidden corners in the world, still countless questions, and perhaps that was all right. As a former teacher, she knew the pursuit of knowledge was its own reward. Martha turned the note over in her hands. The lamps on each porch had begun to glow, lighting Cardinal Creek's cozy street. Tomorrow she'd wake just as dawn broke, make her tea, and find fulfillment in a new, simpler day. The coded telegrams might be gone, but their legacy remained in the friendships forged and the secrets gently brought to light. For a retired schoolteacher, that was a puzzle solved as elegantly as any she'd ever encountered, and it was enough.